Okay, we're going to call the November 19th, 2025 Planning Board meeting to order. First order of business is to review, we have 3 outstanding minutes that we need to review and approve. We'll do those separately. The first one is the September 23rd, 2025 regular meeting.
Want to make a motion to approve the September 23rd, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
Second?
Motion and a second, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous. The second order is the October 14th, 2025 special meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the October 14th, 2025 minutes.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. And the last is the October 28th.
Sorry, I just want to abstain because I wasn't at that meeting.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
We'll note that. Thanks, Trina. The October 28th, 2025 regular meeting. Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thanks. Okay. Before we roll into the public comments, would like to recognize Heather Smallwood and Scott Cornett, our newly elected commissioners that will start in December. Yeah, so welcome. Okay, excuse me. Public comments, we did not receive anything, so we'll move on to the action agenda. First item is 4A, consider a recommendation on petition TA 2511, request by Northwood Raven to amend Articles 4.9 and 8.16 of the zoning ordinance to allow reduced setbacks for some attached garages. Ms. Fate?
Good evening, Board. I'd like to enter the staff report into the record. So we have TA 25-11, which is a text amendment application by Northwood Raven to achieve 2 goals. One is to revise requirements for attached garages, and the second is to revise requirements for mechanical equipment for single-family detached homes. So the current standards for attached garages, when you attach any structure to a home, that addition becomes subject to the same setbacks as the home. If it's detached, it has different setbacks. The applicant would like to amend the requirement that the attached structure has the same setbacks as the home. They want to reduce the setback essentially in certain circumstances when you attach garages to the rear of a single-family detached home. The applicant has specifically indicated that they would like for the setbacks to be reduced when it is a single-family detached home that is accessed from an alley. So this would be the only circumstance where this change would be applicable. They are proposing that the garages would be attached via breezeway, and in consultation with the applicant, a maximum of 15 feet is proposed for the length of that breezeway. The second part of the text amendment is to amend requirements for mechanical equipment. So today, mechanical equipment is not permitted to encroach into any required setback. So typically what we're going to see for a single-family detached home in terms of mechanical equipment is HVAC equipment and pool equipment, although there could be other types of mechanical equipment, but overwhelmingly it's pool equipment and HVAC systems. So today, when a single-family detached home is permitted, the HVAC equipment has to be outside of the side yard setback, which generally is about 5 feet. It could be more, it could be less. and it has to be outside of the rear yard setback. So the blue boxes indicate areas where you would be allowed to place mechanical equipment today, generally HVAC equipment. The applicant is proposing a third option wherein mechanical equipment would be permitted to encroach into the rear yard setback as long as it is screened from view. If there is an alley in the rear, or if somehow you could see it from the public street, which generally you can't when it's in the rear of a home. Staff find that the proposed text amendment is consistent with LU 8.1 and 8.2. It allows greater flexibility for attaching structures to single-family homes accessed off of alleys, and it also increases the requirement for screening, because currently we don't require screening, and for any mechanical equipment for single-family detached homes. And it would be only required in this specific instance, so wouldn't be making any nonconformities with existing homes that have HVAC equipment or pool equipment in their side or rear yards. This evening is obviously the planning board hearing for a recommendation on this item, and town board final action is proposed for December 16th. Happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
So just a clarification on the attached garage, a breezeway, even though it doesn't have walls or maybe an electrical or plumbing, it would still be considered attached. Just a roof structure that connects the house to the garage considered attached.
That has been the consistent interpretation of staff, yes.
Okay. And this isn't doing anything with the detached. The detached rule is staying the exact same, correct?
That is correct.
Yep, all right.
Hey, I got a couple.
Sure.
So let's go back to the breezeway, I guess. So
Sure.
there's a limit on how much square footage you can add on for a detached building, right? It's, was it 50% of the first heated square footage of the first floor or something like that, or is it 100%?
Yes, you can exceed the first floor heated area of the home.
And if you put a breezeway and attach it, then what's the limit?
Then there is no limit.
There is no limit. So I'm trying to max this thing out. So you could put a breezeway and you could put as big a building as you wanted to in your backyard, as long as you didn't encroach on, if we passed this, the 5 feet setback in the backyard, as long as that's an alley.
Yes. So, and kind of getting to your point, there's obviously a kind of a larger conversation about the breezeways, but because the way that this text amendment is structured is saying that this would only apply when you're accessed off of an alley, overwhelmingly in the town, we don't have large lots that have alley access. It's going to be lots that are generally about 60 or 50 feet or less. So these are going to generally be very, like, much smaller lots. Now, that doesn't mean that adding another structure couldn't be intrusive, but you're not looking at a situation where there's like a 10,000 square foot home and a 10,000 square foot like structure attached by a breezeway to it. That's not possible.
Yeah, when we say it's not possible, the next thing you know, somebody's trying it. So I was just trying to, I mean, if somebody wanted to really rev up their square footage, they could attach a breezeway and push this 10,000 square foot building into their backyard within 5 feet of the lot line in the back.
Well, if your lot is less than 60 feet wide, you wouldn't be able to have a 10,000 square foot, like the
Yeah,
first floor heated area of the home couldn't be 10,000 square feet.
But essentially, you could fill up your backyard with
You could.
rooftop.
Yep.
This. Okay. The other thing on the mechanical equipment, HVACs and such, it also applies just for single-family homes that are backed up by an alley?
These would be for any type of single-family detached home that you could encroach into the rear yard.
Okay, so let me rev that up then. So say you've got a home that your backyard, you share backyards with your neighbor on the next block or whatever.
Yep.
And you don't want your noisy HVAC next to your house, and you can push it all the way out to your property line within 5 feet of the neighbor's property line in that case?
So in that case, yes, you would be allowed to encroach into the rear yard setback.
But this is only
So no, not the mechanical equipment. The mechanical
Equipment is anywhere, okay.
any single-family detached home lot type.
Okay, that's it for now.
So would it be a safe assumption to go back to one of Lee's points, it may help him, that since these are more than likely new developments, there would be an impervious restriction that would probably prohibit somebody from really just maxing out the footprint?
It's more likely that that would be restrictive if they're in a watershed. This developer and this development is not in a restricted watershed.
But they would be restricted based on the size of their pond, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Michael?
Kind of on the same track with Lee regarding the mechanicals. How does this, I guess, how do you overlay fire and public safety related issues associated with potential fire with a setback that far? What increase do you get? What additional risk are we incurring by allowing this to happen?
Could you kind of further explain?
Let me just kind of go back to the last thing I said. You're moving the mechanicals closer to another property. How do you assess the incremental risk now associated with that in the event of a disaster of potential fire spreading? Have we looked at that?
Okay, so no, that would be up to Mecklenburg County Code Enforcement to make a determination about whether or not mechanical equipment would be too close to another home or to other mechanical equipment.
But we're saying, what you're asking us to do tonight is say that it's okay. And it's then up to fire to decide that, no, we won't let it happen.
Well, you could decide that it's not okay.
Well, I'm simply saying if we concluded that, yeah, let's go ahead and approve it, who has assessed, probably another way of asking, who has assessed the incremental risk by moving mechanicals closer to a property line?
There's no assessment about whether or not there is an increased risk. And
Should there be an assessment, since we're moving mechanicals now?
we could. Yep.
Thanks.
Any further questions for staff?
Lauren, just, obviously, this is coming probably before us because there's a specific development that they're trying to fit this into, right?
Yep.
That's typically what we see. What is it they're trying to accomplish? Is it just because the rear yard? I'm still trying to understand why we're changing it, why they're changing it. What is it that they're?
Sure. So the developer's lot design included the HVAC equipment within the rear yard setback. That is not currently permitted under the current code. So the developer is requesting a text amendment to change that so that they are compliant.
So in this case, their footprint is probably getting right to the setback and they're having,
That is correct.
okay. I'm still thinking through it.
I'm trying to figure out what the advantage is
Sure.
of changing this.
I mean, I would. You mean,
For the town, I understand the advantage for the developer is that they get to develop the lot the way they want. But for the town, what is the advantage of changing this?
So it allows a level of flexibility that's beneficial, especially when you're seeing a lot of the lots that are come in are more clustered, they're more small. It becomes very difficult a lot of times for various applicants to put the HVAC in certain locations. That's something that we struggle with a lot on lots of neighborhoods, especially in the side yard. They want to put it in the side yard, can't put it in the front. That's along the street, can't put it there. Where can you put it? You got to put it in the back. If you have a small lot, then it becomes an issue with the setback on the rear. So looking at what the applicant is submitting, the best case, it's in the rear. It's mostly going to be very near the building, so it's not going to be usually 5 feet from the property line because it's going to have to be near the building. So staff was okay with that application in that circumstance because it's in the rear and it's not going to have a very large effect on what we currently do now.
And I just had a quick question on the screening requirements. Is that like outlined anywhere? Like it's got to be a certain bush height or fence height or?
Yes, we have screening requirements in Article 7 of the zoning ordinance.
So, Lauren, this is a situation where this is not just one development that has an issue with it. It's something that you all have seen numerous times, is what I think I'm understanding.
So, yes, with regard to the HVAC equipment.
Yes,
We
yes.
have seen it. So the other instances, though, where we've seen the issue with the HVAC equipment are with townhomes. They aren't with single-family detached homes. So, very often, because most of the time, townhomes take up the majority of the lot, they have already reduced setbacks, on the sides and the rear. There is sometimes a point where they submit building permits, and that is where they realize that the HVAC equipment that they're placing is in their rear yard setback. So in the previous 2 instances, I believe they've come back and they've administratively either requested adjustments to setbacks, or they have placed utility easements for the HVAC equipment to go in the rear of the properties.
But this is for single family only.
That's correct.
I have a
Questions?
motion.
Go ahead.
In considering the proposed amendment TA 25-11, the planning board recommends approval based on the amendment being consistent with policies LU 8.1 and 8.2 of the Huntersville 2040 plan. It is reasonable in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because it will allow greater flexibility for setbacks of garages for single-family homes and mechanical equipment.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, any discussion with the board? Chris, we'll start with you.
No, I mean, I think in the spirit of the rules, it seems like we're trying to be flexible and help out a developer, and hopefully they bring a good product. I could see it for the HVAC. The garage is a little bit of a concern with somebody just building a, 10-foot breezeway and then a, 4,000 square foot detached garage, obviously you got some permeability requirements and whatnot, but I think it's fair.
All that.
This is where I'm going to be in support of it. And quite honestly, it kind of comes down to, I trust our staff. I think they're very diligent, and if they recommend it, I don't always side with the staff, but in this case, this is a little bit more technical, and I decide with the staff.
I think it's a little bit undercooked, I guess, at this point, because like I said, you could use this, you could exploit this and do what you said. You could build, mimic the footprint of your house just by putting a breezeway in and putting the same footprint in your backyard within 5 feet of the property line. I mean, as it stands, you could do the same kind of thing, but at least you'd have to be back 25 feet. Yes, it fixed the developer's problems and it fixes small lot problems, but I think it opens up more opportunities for missteps on this one. And then the mechanical equipment, I could support that if it was also backed by the alley, if that clause was in there. But if it's just, and we don't know what mechanical equipment besides normal HVAC stuff and gas packs it could be, but that's kind of a vague category. You could push anything up to your neighbor's property line, anything egregious, mechanical bull or whatever, for instance. I know you were having problems coming up with examples last night, so I'll give you that one. And off you go. So I'm not going to be able to support this.
So Lee, let me ask a question. Is your concern the size of the garage, like somebody could build a very large ADU Or are you talking, because they could add on to the building as is. Like if they just wanted to make an addition, they could take it all the way to the max. But I was wondering, were you thinking we could stretch that ADU out to something that's extremely large by expanding and expanding?
Well, that piece is already there, and we've been down this breezeway thing a couple years ago, and it's already there, but this way, instead of having to give your neighbor 25 feet for this, now you're only giving him 5. So you could literally cover almost every inch of your property, save 5 feet on the side and back with impervious.
Lee, would you like to amend the motion so that we include that, the word alley in it
To the mechanical.
to the mechanical?
Yeah, that would be nice, yes. If we could add where single-family detached house is backed by now.
I'd like to amend my motion, the last part, say, mechanical setbacks with respect to only respect to alleys. Lots on alleys, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll second that.
So point of clarification, so this is a staff question. Going for it. So if we restrict it just to alley back, does that address the primary driver of this request? If it's only applicable to alleys?
So the lots that, with this HVAC challenge for this particular development are not backed up by alleys.
Doesn't fix the problem.
What are they backed up by?
They're backed up by adjoining properties. So I'll add some of them, I know for sure, are backing up to an adjoining development, and between the rear yard property line and that adjoining development, there is a 20 or 25-foot buffer that will need to be installed, and it's a vegetated buffer. I believe there's also, in this specific instance, a retaining wall as well. Obviously, the challenge with this is that that may not be the case every time. So while that is this, those are the specifics of this, for this development and for this developer, there may be instances where the lots could be just backing up to another person's rear yard.
With that, Chris, do you want to
Maybe.
amend your motion?
Yeah, I want to re-amend my motion and ask for all my other questions. Oh, yeah, remove the part about the alley. And so how far back do they want to go? I mean, if we're going to try to mitigate Lee's concern of somebody pushing, their HVAC within 5 feet of their property line, not necessarily in this development, but in another one, I mean, is there another buffer we could put there besides 25 feet that would satisfy the requirement?
So, a couple things. So one, if it's a single-family detached home, and I do not review code for HVAC equipment, but when we discovered this issue, we contacted Mecklenburg County Code Enforcement, and our understanding is that there is a max length. I don't know what it is, but there is a max length in the distance that you can have the HVAC unit from the home.
Right, for efficiency purposes, probably, yeah.
So there's that. They would enforce that. So no matter what the town's recommendation or regulation is, there would be that restriction. But to your question specifically, there are instances where there are lots that are very close to each other. There are homes that are on smaller lots where they're adjoining. So our practice is to use screening. Typically, we don't get a lot of complaints for people's HVAC units as a nuisance. We get more complaints for pool equipment as a nuisance. And so when someone currently, because this would also apply to pool equipment, when the pool rules were changed within the past several years, I believe that was a consideration as well, where the mechanical equipment was specifically kind of reaffirmed to not be within a required setback, because some people have like a 5-foot side yard setback and their neighbor has a 5-foot side yard setback, and so when they turn the pool equipment on, it's very loud. So outside of the code requirement that you couldn't push it all the way to the back of a yard adjoining your neighbor, there would not be anything other than screening as a practice for us to prevent a nuisance to your neighbor.
1 second, Scott. You amended your motion again. Trina, you second that?
I can second that, sure.
I'm not trying to find outliers, but that's part of what we do here. Pool equipment can be allowed, and I even think about like a backup generator. I could see that being a scenario where somebody says, hey, I don't really want this near my house, but generator could probably be pretty far off their house and not affect them, but affect their neighbor more, so.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. Currently, we have the 5-foot minimum to the line on the side yard.
That is correct.
So this is asking for a 5-foot minimum to the back.
I don't even know.
So,
That-
so this is saying that they can encroach into the rear yard setback. So in this particular case, their rear yard setback is 25 feet. So we've shown it close to the home because that is practical. But the way that the language is written is just allowing encroachment into the rear yard setback. So we have other encroachment language in our ordinance where there's a maximum amount of encroachment. So in the one scenario that I can think of, there's a formula essentially that you have to abide by where you can't encroach more than a certain proportion of your setback. So, for example, if this setback was 25 feet, you could say you can't encroach more than 10 feet, 10% into that setback. So, which that wouldn't really be helpful, that's not practical, right? But you get the drift. So essentially saying maybe you can't encroach more than 10 feet into a required rear yard setback because most often your setback into your rear yard is going to be more than 10 feet. For townhome lots, that's not the case, but for a single-family detached home lot, you're usually going to have a setback of at least 25 feet. So that's one way you could be restrictive by setting a maximum amount of encroachment.
Yeah, just going down that path, again, we understand this is for a specific, like, if we said it can encroach into the setback, but shall not exceed 10 feet. Do you think we're getting there, but still trying to help our concerns here?
I think that would be helpful.
But then the pool conundrum, because once you add a pool, then you're not supporting the house, you're supporting the pool, and then you want your equipment out there further, so, But I like the way you're headed, definitely,
But you couldn't put it within 15 feet of your neighbor's line
either way, right.
in that case.
And then I thought like a no more than X number of feet from the base structure kind of thing.
That's kind of where I was going, was that, hey, it's a limitation, it can't exceed 10 feet from the,
But then the pool thing came to my head. It says, if they put a pool out there, then they're gonna have to go back and put the power equipment.
what do they have to do now if they put in a pool? Is it,
So if they put in a pool, they can't be any nearer than 5 feet from the side yard property lines, and then they would have to respect the rear yard setback, whatever that is for the home.
so in that case, the equipment really needs kind of probably be between the pool and the house?
Yep.
Which does help us protect the adjoining neighbor under that scenario. Whereas this could open it up that now somebody can say, well, hey, if I can go there, I want to put my pool equipment on this side of my pool, closer to my neighbor than to my house.
Yes. Very often, we see the complaint with the pool equipment when it's in the side yard, because side yard setbacks tend to be small.
Yeah.
So if you have a side yard minimum setback of 5 feet, a lot of times the homes aren't more than 10 feet from that setback. So it's still close. They could still put it there, the pool equipment there, it would be close, but it would resolve the issue with the rear yard setback.
But if we allowed that pool equipment to go into the rear setback,
Yep.
then that could potentially, I'm trying to find the upside here, it could potentially relieve your next door neighbor from that noise.
Good.
But we just don't want to make it encroaching on the back
Right.
neighbor.
That's where I was headed, yeah.
But we could put limits on that.
Sounds like that's where we're headed. I know the instance with somebody in my neighborhood built a pool and the equipment's there and the next neighbor in the backyard can, sit on his back porch and hear it run, so. Yeah, I don't know what the right number is, kind of arbitrary at this point, but so is 5 and 25, 10.
10 feet from the structure, not 10 feet from the property line is where you're talking, right?
Yes.
That we're trying to keep it close to.
Keep it closer to the structure, yeah, and respect the existing.
Mechanical equipment no more than 10 feet from the structure. Do I need to reread it?
I understand. Yep.
Second.
Okay. And then the second, any further discussion? Michael?
Bit of a contrarian, but look like we're making a universal, obviously, an ordinance is being universal, but there seems to be a lot of variability. I'm just curious, is there some way we could address this one developer issue and not make it universal until we get a better sense for how this is likely to be impacting on a more broader basis? There's a lot of back and forth, and just simply saying, I'm not trying to stop the development, but I do think
Yeah.
it would be a little better if we just simply say, okay, for this one, we get it, and let's get us some data points to figure out how best to try to address this on a more universal basis.
Conditional rezoning kind of thing, right? Can you tell us why they wouldn't have come with this conditionally?
So, sure. So this specific development was approved as a by right major subdivision after there was no longer quasi judicial review of major subdivisions. And the lots were designed by the developer with this layout, with the HVAC equipment in this location. Staff does not review the location of HVAC equipment as a part of plan review. Generally, we recommend very strongly that the architects understand those requirements as they are designing the lots. The homes are taking up the majority, if not the entirety, of their building envelopes, and so their HVAC equipment is encroaching. In terms of solutions for one development, as has been mentioned, that is where you're looking at a conditional district rezoning application, or you are seeking a variance for relief, but that obviously has standards that you must meet for relief with a variance.
So I'm coming back to what are we getting out of this, right? And is this something that would give your office relief?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
So we're talking about this, and Michael made an excellent point about, we're talking about this as a universal change to all of Huntersville, when maybe we need to be doing it for one community, one property. My question is, what are we getting out of this? Is this going to give you relief?
So I think going back to the statement about the flexibility, it would be helpful from the staff's perspective. We didn't see the changes as being very large, and the possibilities being, the negative possibilities being very viable, per se. But if the board would like to recommend certain aspects and different setbacks, the board is welcome to do that, can do that. If you're saying the applicant needs to go do a conditional rezoning and you like the laws, the rules the way they are, staff says recommend that, right? It's just from our experience, a little bit more flexibility. And to Lauren's point, it's not uncommon, again, for subdivisions to come in with small lots get approved, but not think about the HVAC issues, to not think about mechanical equipment, to not think about those little aspects of building permit which come in during a later part of the process. So having a little bit more wiggle room is helpful because it's a constant scenario. Not saying specifically about this one applicant, but to answer your question about what would it do for staff, a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more tools to address when that situation happens, what can we do about it?
Okay, so as we're discussing, I just want to throw this out there that obviously I've gone back and forth on this because I feel like all have. And hearing that the staff needs more flexibility is cementing this for me, that I'm okay with this because I trust them. I see what they bring before us, and I'm fine with giving you guys wiggle room.
I like where we are in, we always talk about we're running out of land, so, we do want to try to maximize the density that we have. And I just, simple person, I look at it, as they lay these out, they've got a building envelope that they're trying to build within, and all of a sudden, if they have to put the mechanical in that, it inevitably probably shrinks that building envelope down, which means less density on that lot. So by doing this, I feel like hopefully it gives them the maximum building envelope, and now we're just increasing by a small amount, which is the mechanicals. And again, if we keep it within 10 feet of the primary structure, I think we're there.
If we allowed this for HVAC units, but maybe not other mechanical equipment, would that give the desired flexibility?
It would.
Remind me which one Northwood Raven is again?
That development is located at the corner of Stumptown and Statesville Road, so it's adjoining Monteith.
And I want to trust staff too, so I'm going to ask the question, did you consider the fact that somebody could actually build another similar building in their backyard, similar home in their backyard connected by a breezeway within 5 feet of the property line?
So this is not HVAC, breezeway.
We're back to breezeway.
Okay. I want to make sure.
I don't want anybody to
Sure.
think, I don't trust staff, but did you consider the fact that somebody could put an ADU that could be, in my case, it could be 2,500 square feet within 5 feet of my back property line, just as long as I attach it with a breezeway.
So
I know the consideration was all new development, and I know in particular this development, but since we're all encompassing, I just want to make sure you went outside the box a little bit of new development, existing development.
Okay. So yes, so the text is specific to garages. It doesn't include ADUs.
Okay.
Yes, it does not include ADUs, so it's only garages. So only garages may be attached in the rear this close to the rear property line when you're on an alley. Garage, it says it's just garages.
And Lee, not to interrupt, you do have an alley protection in this particular one. It does have.
Yeah, for that, for right. Yeah, just,
I know what you're going with this, and I don't disagree.
okay.
Yep, so it's only amending the allowances for garages that are attached, not for every accessory
alley.
structure. Yes, on it, yes.
Okay.
And the property is 50,
So it's a narrow lot, yes.
yeah, it's a 50 feet or less, I think. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, I think, is it 50?
So only 50 feet or less on an alley and only garages.
It might be 60. We can,
50 is
50 feet or less? Okay.
for alleys, yeah.
You have the language. Does that help with that question?
Well, can we get back to the garages again? So I guess for me, I'm just hung up on the fact that we are changing the parameters of the square footage for a garage in this instance, right? If it's attached, it can now be greater than, or I guess there's no size limitation, whereas if it was just purely detached, it's got to be equal to or less than the square footage of the first floor of the home, correct?
That is correct.
So now we can build things with a greater square footage without limitation. So this whole request was brought to deal with setbacks. And now we are changing or having an unintended consequence of changing square footage building restrictions. Is it not a simple fix to just include a line in the amendment here to require that these garages still be treated as detached for purposes of square footage or something along those lines?
We could evaluate that. So because this is specific to lots that are 60 feet wide or less, 50 or 60 feet wide or less, there is going to be an innate, like, you're not going to be able to fit like a 5-car garage
Sure, right.
in the rear there.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. And I appreciate that point. To me, this just feels like, it's foreseeable that, I guess I'm confused why we're even entertaining the idea that the square footage restrictions can be changed just because you're adding a breezeway.
It's just a difference, essentially.
Yeah, right.
So today, and I can see it in my mind, but essentially, so today, if you have a 60-foot wide lot, the garages that are in the rear of those, it would be unlikely that you could have a 3-car garage back there. It's challenging for people to fit a 2-car garage in the rear of this type of home lot. So that's why we didn't find it challenging that there's not an additional limitation on the square footage. Because other than going vertical, which you can't because it's a garage, and there's a limitation, there's already a limitation for the height of the garage, which it's not going to be able to exceed the height of the home. It has to be at the maximum, that same height. So, and so far, and not to say, as you've mentioned, it's not impossible, but so far, we've not seen on a lot that's less than 60 feet wide, anyone having a garage, for example, for a, like a recreational vehicle. They're not able to fit that essentially on that type of lot.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it seems unlikely given the size of the lot and the footprint of what we're talking about here. But, it just seems like an easy thing to cut off by, one adjustment to the language of the amendment. But
Sure, and we're welcome that, if that's a part of the motion. I would say if this were single-family detached homes that were not accessed by an alley and were not this narrow, staff would definitely have a significantly more considerable concern about how large that structure could be. We understand the concern about a further flexibility being abused essentially by just attaching an enormous structure by breezeway, which is why we're far more comfortable in this specific instance because the lots are inherently much smaller and there's a restriction that's kind of baked in that will limit the size of a garage there.
thank you.
Any other discussion? We ready for a vote? I remember.
Considering the proposed amendment TA 25-11, the plan. Oh, sorry. In considering the proposed amendment TA 25-11, the planning board recommends approval based on the amendment being consistent with policies LU-8.0 and 8.1 of the Huntersville 2040 plan. It is reasonable and in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because it will allow greater flexibility for setbacks of garages for single-family homes, as well as mechanical equipment, but only within 10 feet of the structure. Is that okay? Marshall, you good with that?
Okay, well, we're ready for a vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? None. Okay.
Thank you all. We appreciate your consideration.
Okay, moving on. Item 4B, consider recommendation on petition TA 25-10, a request by R. Todd Hirschfield to amend Articles 3.23 and 9.18 of the zoning ordinance.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Tonight, we are here to consider text amendment 2510, which amends Articles 3.2.3 and 9.18 of the zoning ordinance regarding helistops.
The applicant is Todd Hirschfield. Currently, Article 9.18 allows helistops as an accessory use in the campus, institutional, corporate business, and special purpose districts. This text amendment would allow helistops in general residential zoning district with conditions, and the proposed conditions are, number one, the helistop should be for personal, private use only, and shall not be open to the public for commercial purposes. Landings and takeoffs shall only occur during daylight hours. No fueling, maintenance, or repairs shall occur on the property, and all operations must comply with the FAA regulations and any applicable local safety standards. This is the ordinance, so you would see where it would be changed in the zoning ordinance. So as we were processing this request, staff did research on how other municipalities in the region handle helistops and residential uses. And we could only find one municipality that allowed a helistop in conjunction with some sort of residential use, and that was the city of Charlotte. The city of Charlotte allows helistops in conjunction with the neighborhood one place type, which is a group of zoning districts, if you will. It is primarily residential, so it allows for a multitude of different residential types, multifamily, duplexes, things of that nature, along with single-family homes, and also allows for limited commercial uses that do serve the residential uses that are also allowed. So it's not a true, just straight residential zoning designation, but the one regulation that they do have is that it must be located at least 400 feet from a lot line. The other municipalities that we researched allowed helistops as accessories for medical, government, and commercial uses, which is how the ordinance currently handles them. Staff does have some concerns regarding the text amendment as it is written today. There is concern about potential nuisances for neighboring properties, noise and wind, the need to do some tree clearing for safe flight paths or potential effects on adjacent properties, what that tree clearing might do. I mean, just the lack of precedent. There is no one in the region that is doing this, the way this amendment is being proposed. The 2040 plan has a land use recommendation, LU 11.1, that says that we should protect and enhance the unique character of Huntersville's neighborhoods by using planning tools to safeguard from potentially negative impacts of development and redevelopment. So staff does not believe that this text amendment, as it is currently written, aligns with the 2040 community plan. So due to the aforementioned concerns, staff recommends denial of the request. However, if there is a desire for there to be helistops allowed in the general residential district, staff does recommend that they be allowed by a special use permit, which would allow them to be regulated and considered on a case-by-case basis. This will be considered for final action on December 16th. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have for me, and the applicant is here as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Questions for staff?
So talk about the case-by-case basis, right? So if we were to approve this tonight, you're saying anybody could just put a helistop in their yard as long as they fell in whatever requirements we put on this motion?
They were zone GR and they met the 4 conditions, correct?
Yeah. And, yeah, I love that. And did we ever get a distance from where the applicant is landing from the nearest neighbor?
I believe the applicant has that in his presentation.
Okay, perfect. We'll hear that in a little bit. All right, that's it.
I have a question. How to say it? I've seen these on the lake. If you, I'm gonna say a landing pad in the lake, is that out of technically the zoning district? Since it's off the property line, it would be in Duke.
Falls under Duke's jurisdiction.
So that's an option, I guess, or it could be. Or it's out of the town's review, maybe?
Yes?
I wouldn't say it's out of the town's jurisdiction. We do issue dock permits. We do have zoning requirements for dock permits. It has a ramification in some of the distance and setback concerns. And so there's a little bit of relief there in that regard. But I don't think at this time we'd be able to say it's out of our jurisdiction. I don't think that's the case.
So there would be a way, I mean, whatever that is, I don't know what that would be, but if they build a dock out in the lake and it met whatever criteria you have, that is an option.
It would be a more beneficial variable for the location, for sure.
Okay, that's all I had. Thanks, Brad. Other questions? You want to have the applicant present? Thank you. If you could state your name and address for the record at the podium and.
Artad Hirschfeld, 16220 Stinson Cove Road in Huntersville. Thank you. Thank you, Board, incoming Commissioners, Town, for this opportunity. I will definitely address the questions that you guys asked as well. So who am I and why am I here? I'm Todd Hirschfeld, as I mentioned, originally from Virginia. My wife and I graduated from Virginia Tech in 2000. Here, like many race car drivers, thinking I was going to be the next Jeff Gordon. That didn't happen, so I built my business just up here on Bailey Road. As many of you might drive by, I employ about 80 employees here locally at Hirschfeld Marketing Solutions. In 2012, I got my fixed wing license for flying airplanes, and then our family has a residence up in Banner Elk, North Carolina, and we were significantly hit with Hurricane Helene. And as an aviator, as well as a local up there, I was quick to jump in with action and surrounded by helicopters during this rescue mission, and was in awe. And so I wanted to get my rotary license, and I did so last year. That's my helicopter and myself in Banner Elk. A lot of folks, I learned last night, think when they hear helicopters, they think big military, Apaches and such. Definitely different. That's not what I'm looking to fly. So this is an R-44. And I'm seeking to occasionally land my helicopter on my property that I've purchased back in 2011, and have made some regulation or some requests as such as landing during the daylight hours and so forth. Have no interest in commercial use, have no interest in fueling or maintenance or anything like that on my property. As Becca mentioned, the current zoning is a heli-stop shall be permitted as an accessory in the campus districts and special purpose districts, provided it complies with all FAA regs. And I'm requesting the proposed language as mentioned a minute ago. I did learn a lot last night about special use permits, I guess this morning, so we'll get to that. But as of last night, my request was proposing a small specific addition to allow heli stops in conditional use in general residential. I think this is an important slide. I did a lot of homework, had a lot of conversations with the FAA to make sure that I was in full compliance before even coming to the board with this. And the FAA confirmed that helicopters may land safely on private property if no hazard people or property. I am also not in an HOA. The FAA states no careless or reckless operation. Pilot is fully responsible for safe operation and noise abatement guidance in residential areas. There are already several helipads, as Mr. Henson mentioned, on the lake that coexist peacefully within their neighborhood. So this is hopefully proof that they can, actually be built. This, I would say, as it was pointed out last night by the board, is an extreme difference. I'm not looking to attach a dock to a structure like this, but this is a beautiful picture, and I thought that it looked good in my presentation, quite frankly. But this does open up other conversation based on your question that I'll get to here in a little bit regarding Duke. My house represents the yellow star at the bottom in Huntersville. There is about 8 helipads that I am aware of within 2 miles of my house. I know there's more, but these are the ones that I am aware of. As far as Mr. Hendrick, 2 miles away, the one I just showed you in the previous picture, Sid Morse, is about a mile, 1.8, all the way down to less than a mile at 4,442 feet at the Atkins residence across the cove from me. Obviously, these guys are multimillionaires and billionaires, and I'm not, but I don't think that's a prerequisite. What I'm looking to do is utilize the safety of the entrance that I have into my cove, And I think it's important to say, I would never start my landing this far out the cove. This is just to show for demonstration purposes how much room I have. While helicopters rarely use a runway, I'm sure you've seen that, it's just for context, most runways are about 75 to 100 feet wide. I would have at least 100 feet at our smallest point between two existing docks, not homes or sides of the canal, but if at the smallest, it would be 100 feet. And my property line has 273 feet of shoreline that would be using for my flight path and landing. One of the things that I completely understand and why I'm probably standing here tonight, since one of my neighbors found out that I was looking to build a sports court that would also service as a helipad. It is also very different when you look at the continuous noise that comes from a helicopter. A helicopter produces about 80 to 85 decibels for less than a minute and a half. I timed my last departure on Saturday to see how long it took me from fire up sound to actual departure, and it was about a minute and a half of consistent noise at that same decibel. And then, as I mentioned last night, while I was going through my slides, my neighbor about 3 houses down was blowing leaves for about an hour and a half, and I could not hear it. And I promise you, now that you guys go home, I apologize. You're going to hear your neighbors, and you're going to think of this when you hear them blowing weeds or blowing leaves. But anyway, this is just an interesting slide that kind of showcases the amount of noise that comes from just household equipment versus the amount of noise that comes from a helicopter. And again, it's important to point out, I'm about a minute and a half on the ground and then about 2.5 minutes during landing. This is just from the FAA Advisory Circular 9136. Lost my slides. Oh, they're not up there. Oh, there we go. So what I was asking for in this amendment was to allow case-by-case town review, continue to require FAA and town compliance, permit limited private use, and keep community oversight. This amendment was not a request to allow automatic helipads anywhere in Huntersville, override any neighborhood controls or HOA, permit commercial operations, or change the character of the neighborhood. I understand that there's some letters that were sent in my support of this request. These 3 specifically are from my next door neighbors that are directly next to me and would probably be the most affected. My house represents the red dot, the red marker, and then the 3 letters that I'm aware of are the 3 circles on either side of my house and then across the street. So I did take a little bit of time to address the issues that Becca pointed out and potential noise ordinance. Noise. Mine is uniquely positioned. My lot is uniquely positioned over the open water and completely unobstructed on my approach and departure. I have really no interest and really no way to go over a house structure unless I literally went straight up with the helicopter and then turned over. Not to say you can't do it, that's what helicopters are for, but that's not safe, and it is important to be safe, as the FAA pointed out. There's not a whole lot of wind that comes from rotor wash in my size helicopters. There is rotor wash, there is wind, but it's not like aggressive that you would feel it from a neighbor 2 houses over or even 1 house over. So that's important to state. I totally agree with the tree clearing concerns, and I have no interest in removing any trees from the tree save location between my lot and the lake as proposed. I also I do have trees that would have to be removed to build the pickleball or the sports court, but I could also say, hey, this is a bad idea. I should just sell the lot. And somebody's going to put a big house on there, and a lot more trees are going to be taken out if somebody was to put a house on that lot as opposed to a sports court. The other concern was the lack of precedent. I guess when zoning use and uncommon within a town like this one, planning boards routinely look at adjacent municipalities with similar residential patterns. As we pointed out earlier, Huntersville is the only one on the lake that has this similar situation. Denver, Lincoln County, Cornelius, Mooresville, they all have helipads. And I mean, I guess you could say I got unlucky straw there by being literally a quarter of a mile from Lincolnton, but it is what it is. And then to reference the situation where only one local municipality allows for residential heli stops, being Charlotte. As Becca said, this is not an apples to apples comparison at all. Charlotte rules are driven by dense blocks and tight setbacks. They're not flying over water. If you think about it, they're flying over homes, flying over buildings, and then hence the 400-foot setback. Not aligned with the 2040 plan. Sorry, I'm having some problems here. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, I think my proposal includes built-in protections that exceed the ordinances: daylight use only, limited frequency, minimal tree removal, no tree removal from the tree save area, and safe operations over the water paths. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I learned a lot. I'm a fish out of water if you can't tell up here, guys. The town should consider special use permit. Absolutely. My intention is simple: to do this the right way with full transparency and in partnership with the town. I learned a lot about special use permits. I learned a little bit there in the last presentation from the board here. And, I'm open to ensuring that the request is reviewed in an appropriate way. And I just appreciate everybody giving me the opportunity to present tonight. And I'll take all your questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Hanson, I'll answer the question. Duke Power does control the lake line, as mentioned, but they have a rule that only allows one dock per primary residence. And I obviously thought about that because that would be the easy way out. That would be the easy button to some extent. But I do already have a dock, and it would have to be significantly changed. And I kind of looked at it as I bought that half acre in 2011, and I haven't done anything with it, and I really don't want to put a neighbor over there, quite frankly. So I was going to utilize it for this use and to build my kids a pickleball court.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the applicant? Scott?
Actually, not the applicant, staff, though. As he was going through his presentation, talking about the FAA, like, what prevents somebody from just landing a helicopter on their land today and not calling it a helistop? Like,
Technically, someone would be doing that is non-compliant with our ordinance, and we would initiate code enforcement.
so our ordinance does specifically say you cannot land a helicopter on.
Yeah, I can answer that.
And I've been trying to find a way around it. I'm just trying to understand, like,
So it's a use issue.
Okay.
Our ordinance specifies uses that are permitted in certain zoning districts. And so we wouldn't know about it unless we know about it, right? But if we learned that operation of a helistop outside of the specified use restrictions was taking place, that would be a zoning violation. So right now, as Becca mentioned, it's in the SP district, and it's for certain uses, emergency facilities and campus institutional district. So it would be a violation once we knew about it. That's correct.
so it's more of the regularity of it versus just a one-time use. Like, if somebody just decided to fly in to see me at my property and land in my backyard, is that still a zoning violation, even though I don't have a helipad?
No, that's correct. It would not be a violation. Like, for instance, if, emergency vehicles, they fly out basically when it's needed. Fire operations kind of do the same thing. But having a pad that's, approved by the FAA as a pad to take off and on a regular basis. in any event.
All right, I'm good for now.
And full transparency, I actually went to the FAA first with this, and their suggestion was exactly what you said, not to rustle any feathers with the town and build a pad, and because you're legally in compliance with the FAA. And I felt like this was gonna be a pretty significant investment. The last thing I wanted to do was upset the town. So I came forward to the town and said, this is what I plan to do. I also told some of my neighbors, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. My neighbors have been asking me for, to kind of fly their kids around. If they ever had an emergency, could I fly them, hypothetically, could I fly them to the hospital? Which I could, and the FAA allows that. However, one of my neighbors, who is not happy about anything in life, decided to make a formal complaint, and that is what kind of triggered me learning about how do I do this, how do I get this going before we move any kind of, shovels.
So after you've heard the conversation that we had about, blanket changes versus special use,
100% aligned. I'm not asking to open up Pandora's box. I did not know
Because-
that was an option until this morning.
I'm not going to support it, not because I don't like you or your plan. I actually do. But I'm not ready to open that up for the rest of the town. I mean, you have some very specific pluses on like your side of things, but not everybody's going to have that. So I didn't know if that was something that you would.
Yes, ma'am. I learned about that, and Becca educated me on it this evening, as well as some other folks. And if I would have known that, I would have probably taken that track originally. But correct me if I'm wrong, I still have to go through this process to, go ahead, sorry.
So the board, and Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, the board does have the authority to make the recommendation to the town board stating, we recommend approval of a text amendment allowing helistops in the general residential district through a special use permit. You have that ability, and the board has that ability as well. And the applicant has expressed that he would be okay with that. He would be willing to go through a special use permit process if that was what was the pleasure of the boards.
We don't have to start over. We can start right here and just amend whatever recommendation we make to put the special use in here,
Absolutely.
take GR out and all that other stuff.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I've got a quick question, more out of curiosity for the applicant. So you said no fueling and no mechanical work, right? So you land at your house safely, and you realize that there's a mechanical issue. At that point, do you bring in a trailer, haul it somewhere to get it worked on?
Actually, you probably don't see it that often, but most helicopters are transported. If it's over a 3-hour flight, most helicopters are transported on trailer.
And then fueling, you land and you're out of fuel.
Oh no, you can't. You never get in within a half hour of reserve just from flight safety. But I am maybe 5 minutes from Lincoln County as far as fueling goes, Lincoln County Airport, and 8 minutes from Concord Airport. So fueling's never really been an issue, but that's one thing in any kind of aviation you don't really want to take a chance on.
Right,
It's the fuel gauge.
right.
So you talked about rotor wash not being a big concern, or as maybe an overblown concern. Can you get any more specific as to, your craft as opposed to larger personal craft? And, like, how far out are we talking before we actually do start to affect neighboring properties or in pure distance? I'm just trying to think for other applications.
I don't want to make up an answer. I
Right.
don't know the exact. I'm sure Robinson could give me some data on that, Robinson Helicopter, the manufacturer. But I currently land on a 12-by-12 pad that is literally 5 feet, 10 feet to the hangar, with the hangar open and nothing's blowing around in there. So that doesn't mean that the rotor wash is getting outside my 33-foot diameter of the rotor wash. It is, but it can't be more than maybe 50 feet. I'm guessing. I could probably get the specific data for you from Robinson.
Right. But bigger personal helicraft would be, we're talking a bigger radius at that point.
Yes, sir.
In theory, in
To-
theory.
Yes, if you went to like what Mr. Hendrick has, like the big Augusta or something like that, $10 million helicopter.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in a
Right.
football game.
Right.
So this is just a question kind of for the board. Is that something that we need to discuss in the amendment? If we're going to do a special use, do we need to limit the helicopter size?
I don't know if it's the time to do that right now.
Okay.
Is-
I was just going to ask the
I
question.
don't think that my space would accommodate a lot, Well, I guess it could. I take that back. But, sorry.
And staff, I guess this is not the time to say, well, if we do this, we'll approve a special. I think our decision is, if we recommend the special use permit, the conditions are gonna come later through your all's, research, I assume.
Yeah, getting into those details.
Details.
Would be through the special use permit process. If the board wanted to do a special use permit process for it, it would need to be a different application because we didn't advertise for this to create a special use permit use through this specific application. But the town could, at the end of it, direct staff to put together a text amendment to do that.
Yeah, and I guess I was saying, this is not the time to say, okay, we're gonna limit the size of the helicopter to this distance from here.
Correct.
If you're on, that comes at a later time.
And that's
Your
one of the
review.
reasons why staff kind of recommended that, because
Yeah.
there's so many different variables that come into play for so many different situations and locations that you can't really do it. You can't have a laundry list in the ordinance of, okay, if you do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, that doesn't make sense. There's too many variables. So the special use permit process would allow all those things to get worked through and conditioned.
While you're up there, can you, I hate to see wasted resources. Can you tell me why we didn't do some coaching on the front end to steer it towards special use rather than just accept this and ultimately deny it? Sorry, I just,
Not involved in the preliminary discussions in that regard. There was some discussion with staff about having that maybe as a possibility. So, in the future, we can have, more discussions on that. But, yeah, I can't answer that question definitively.
okay, thanks. I realize there was some coaching, but I appreciate that. Todd, can I ask you a couple more? Can you go back one slide? Sure. So this, have to graphically look at the stuff. So it's this lot, I guess this is the lot you're talking about.
No, here, let me show you, sorry. The lot we're talking about is actually in this photo, the red line there. And the area is between my house and that yellow circle to above it. It's about a half acre in between.
Oh, okay. That wooded area, that's the wooded area. Okay. How much lakefront footage does that particular lot have?
The lot to the left has about 100 foot, and then my lot to the right has about 170 feet.
And the vacant lot or whatever you purchased, you said it was half an acre, basically? Okay, okay. Yeah, I think that's all I had. Thanks.
And I'll say, just to your previous question to the staff, when I first was reaching, I didn't know what I was doing. I reached out to Brian Richards, and he's like, we've never had this kind of request before either, so I felt like we were kind of learning on it together. But when I learned this morning that I had an option of the special use, I'm all on board, and I'll do whatever I need. I mean, I welcome anybody that would like to either come out to my property and walk it with me. I will fly you around the lake, and we can land there, and you can see what it looks like. But I love that option, and I'm, again, not trying to open up, Pandora's box for anybody that wants to fly helicopters.
Sure, we're just trying to protect somebody else that comes along and wants to put one, because having, especially in GR and residential, it makes it unusual. Do we have, is any helipads in rural, or is this any residential helipad ordinance at all? No. Not even a farmer that could Yellowstone it out to his property? Okay. All right. Okay.
And it was mentioned as well last night, 6 of these that I know of are actually on the docks. There is 2 that are on property, that are landing on property. You don't legally need to have a quote-unquote heli stop or a H or any of that stuff legally by the FAA to land a helicopter on private property. You just have to have permission from the private owner.
Other questions? Scott?
As we read the room here, I was just going to maybe ask staff to give us some direction or path of how I get the sense that we all believe the special use permit is probably the path to go. Do you recommend us denying this? How do we get to the point where he can proceed with the special use permit is what I'm trying to. Yeah, with that one.
So the recommendation would be deny, but to ask staff to work with the applicant to redo an application allowing a special use permit.
So another option would be that you all make a recommendation to deny the request for the text amendment as written, with the recommendation to ask the town board to direct staff to create a special use permit category through a staff-driven text amendment, if that makes sense. You could make that recommendation if you did not want to require the applicant to submit a separate text amendment.
So, sorry, between option 1 and 2 there, option 1, the special use permit is more generalized, and option 2, it would be more specialized towards helipads?
The text amendment as currently drafted would create a by right use with conditions, meaning that it would be by right in that particular zoning district as long as certain conditions were met. However, if we don't want to allow it by right with conditions and make it more of a case-by-case basis determination, we, instead of making it by right with conditions, should create a special use permit category so that that would be a quasi-judicial determination that the board would ultimately decide, meaning the town board. And that would be a purely case-by-case basis. And what I am suggesting is if you don't want to deny this request for the text amendment as written and then create another application for the petitioner, what you could do is you could deny the text amendment right now, make a recommendation to deny it, but with the recommendation on your motion for denial that the town board direct staff to then create a staff-driven text amendment to create a special use permit category.
Would that be quicker?
That's putting the burden on staff, and that way staff can invest the time to research what types of requirements that would be most appropriate for the special use permit category as well. And that way, the applicant who doesn't have the experience that the planning staff has in creating special use permit categories would not be the one coming up with these types of requirements.
Okay.
To create a staff-driven, what did you say?
Special use permit category. So that way, we're basically putting the burden on planning staff to research and come up with the requirements for that particular special use permit category rather than the applicant.
One question more for, not for you, but more for the impact of the applicant. After we do this, should he just not withdraw this application? So as not to trigger?
He
going to
could
the
withdraw it right now, but the point of the recommendation for denial is to add on the recommendation about staff creating it. Because if he withdraws it right now before you make a decision, it kind of just goes away.
Mine goes
without your-
after the board makes its decision, then withdraw it so as not to trigger the next step in the
Well, so what I'm saying is that instead of denying it and that's it, deny it, but let the town board know that you're also recommending that the town board direct staff to create a staff-driven text amendment. Because if it's denied, he could come back, because that would be a substantially different type of text amendment. It'd be for a special use permit category rather than a conditional, well, not conditional, I'm sorry, by right use with conditions. So it's a little different. I'm trying to say that this is a way to give the board your recommendation with your denial motion.
Somebody want to take a stab at that?
I'll give it a shot. Lee, as long as you can add some amendments for me, please. In considering the proposed amendment TA 2510, the planning board recommends denial based on the amendment being inconsistent with a number of critical issues. However, we do recommend the town board to direct staff to create a staff-driven special use category. The end. For this, for helistops in residential zone, residential districts. Stop.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Michael? Okay. Michael did. Okay, discussion. Good job.
The person that usually makes it starts it with discussion. Again, reading the room here, I think we all see that this applicant's situation is very unique. And I think as a board, and even as a town, that we often try to work with residents to come up with a solution for something they want to do that's not impeding on other people. And I think this is a good situation. That doesn't mean that this is a done deal, but I think it's at least a path for him to be able to take that he can hopefully accomplish what he wants to.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. This is not unlike the solar panel deal we used to have under special use with new technology to us. We didn't know what we were looking at, so we put it in special use, and then we took it out eventually. So, and we need this because, you know, this form of travel is probably going to get here before the red line does. So we're all going to need some kind of regulation on this. I think this is the right way to do it. It wasn't headed the right way for me because of the proximity to the neighbors, although you had their consent, that they won't always be the neighbors. And I saw the 400 feet, and I said, half an acre, there's no way you can get 400 feet. So I'm sure when the special use permit goes through that process, they'll have some kind of buffer built in there that'll make me feel better about that. But yeah, I'm good with it.
Anybody else?
Just point out one other thing, that any text amendment, even if it's driven by staff, still has to go through the normal process. So there will be advertisements, there will be a public hearing, and there will be a recommendation from you all, and then the final approval by the town board. So it's not guaranteeing anything.
But again, I appreciate the coaching because I think it kind of keeps the subject alive. Now it goes before the town board, and they hopefully can see where we went, and I think it's the correct path.
I too appreciate the coaching. I mean, this has been a lot of information for me over the last 24 hours, so I appreciate your time, everybody's time, and willingness to work with me to try and make it work if we can.
Yeah, well, thank you. Anybody else? Discussion, take a vote. All those in favor of the motion? Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, moving on. 4C, consider recommendation on petition TA 25-12, a request by the Town of Huntersville Planning Department to amend Articles 4.9 and 8.16 of the zoning ordinance.
Thank you very much again. This is for text amendment 2512, which amends Articles 4.9 and 8.16 of the zoning ordinance, which primarily addresses detached garages. This is a town-initiated text amendment. Currently, so this addresses in Article 4.9 two different sections of Article 4.9. Currently, Article 4.9.3 states that a detached garage can only be located in the rear yard. The amendment will add a reference to 8.16, which will allow detached garages in other yards with restrictions, which we will come back to that. Article 4.9.7 states that the side yard setback is 12 feet in the rural zoning district, so this is merely a housekeeping item. There was a previously approved text amendment that changed the side setback in rural to 8 feet in Article 3, and it was just missed. A reference was missed in Article 4. So this is just a housekeeping item to make sure it's consistent across the entire zoning ordinance. And this is the changes that would be made within the zoning ordinance. Then Article 8.16.7. So it addresses attached and detached garages. So for the attached garage portion, it currently requires garages for more than 2 cars to either be detached and located in the rear yard, or in the rear loading if attached to the side of the structure. So this amendment will just strike through that verbiage. And then for detached garages, it only allows for detached garages to be placed in the rear yard currently. This text amendment would allow for detached garages to be placed in any yard as long as the lot is 5 acres or larger and the structure can't be seen from the road. So smaller lots, lots without proper screening would still be required to have their detached garages in the rear. This would just be for large lots with a lot of tree coverage to have detached garages in any yard. Again, this is what the changes would look like in the ordinance. Staff believes that this text amendment is consistent with the 2040 community plan, as there is a land use recommendation that states to continue to emphasize form and flexibility in development regulations, and we believe this does that. And with all of that, staff does recommend approval of this text amendment, and final action, will be taken by the board on December 16th, and I'll be happy to take any questions you may have. And the applicant is obviously the town, so.
Thank you. Any questions?
Go back a couple slides. I just have a quick question on one more, Becca, a couple more, sorry. Right there.
Yeah.
So you're saying an attached garage that has more than 2 bays can't be on the front of the house and face the street?
Currently, yeah, correct. If it is for more than 2 cars, it has to be either detached or located in, or detached in the rear or located on the side.
And we're taking that away?
Correct.
Okay. Because I feel like I've driven by a lot of houses that have that. That was my only question. I feel like that's fairly common, but all right. But we're getting rid of that.
Yes,
All right.
correct.
Are there any other requirements that we're putting on it other than getting rid of? I mean, you can just build a 3-car garage however you want now,
Brad, do you want to?
as long as it's attached to your house with a 15-foot breezeway.
So, for the attached and single-family home, staff is kind of taking the hands-off approach for single-family home architecture and building design, just because the state has restricted it more. And so we have, to your point, there are 3 car garages that are front-loading now. So that section of the amendment kind of clarifies that and finishes it from a planning perspective. So we don't have to regulate anything in regard to single-family homes.
Got it.
Anybody else? Someone have a motion prepared?
I do. Yeah, I've got a motion. In considering proposed amendment TA 25-12, the planning board recommends approval based on the amendment being consistent with the zoning ordinance, aligns the town zoning ordinance with the state statute, and allows design flexibility for large lots without altering urban design standards.
Second.
Second. Discussion.
No discussion from me.
Is that
No discussion from me.
no discussion? All those, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next case is item 4D, consider petition V 2501, a request by Sean and Anna Townsend for a variance from Article 3.23D3 setback requirements. This will be a zoning variance, so it's got a, excuse me, a different process, so bear with me. We'll get started. Okay. We will begin the quasi-judicial hearing for petition V 2501, request by Sean and Anna Townsend. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, which means the board must base its decision only on competent material and substantial evidence. Only parties withstanding may fully participate in this hearing. This includes the applicant, the property owner, the local government, and anyone who can demonstrate special damages. Special damages must be particularized, separate and distinct from the public at large. Proximity alone is not enough to establish standing. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Others may be allowed to speak as witnesses, but may not examine witnesses or call their own. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony, and testimony must be factual. Personal opinions are not permitted unless given by a qualified expert. Expert topics such as property values or traffic impacts require expert witnesses who must explain the factual basis of their opinions. Now we'd like to recognize the parties withstanding. The board recognizes the applicant and the property owners as parties. Is there anyone else believes that they may have standing to participate as a party may come forward and briefly state how this project affects you differently from the general public. If you do not wish to participate as a party, please wait to come forward until after we have identified the parties withstanding. So I'm assuming at this time, the applicant, if y'all could come forward, please. And before we start, you all are the applicant and the homeowners, correct? Okay, so that identifies, so we accept that, obviously, as the party and have standing. Are there any other witnesses? I'm assuming they're not. Parties withstanding, do you all have any witnesses that you plan on calling, other than yourselves?
We thought we'd be assisted by Becca. I'm not sure that's an option now with what I'm hearing. No, you will. Okay. So as long as.
Okay. So there are no other individuals who wish to testify as witnesses. Now what we'll do is, we're going to, since you all will be testifying, you have to testify under oath. So if you could raise your right hand, and we will swear or affirm you. Including staff that wishes to speak. Please respond loud. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. The parties in this case are entitled to an impartial board. A board member may not participate in this hearing if she or he has a fixed opinion about the matter, a financial interest in the outcome of the matter, or a close relationship with an affected person. Do any board members have a conflict of interest to disclose?
I don't.
Hearing none, we'll move on. The parties to the case have rights for ex parte communication to be disclosed. Ex parte communication is any communication about the case outside of this hearing. That may be email communications as well as conversations with parties, staff, or the general public. Does any board member have any ex parte communications to disclose? And hearing none, based on these disclosures, does any board member or any party wish to object a board member's participation? Okay, hearing none. Staff report. We'll get through this. Now call on the planning staff to present the staff report.
Thank you very much. Okay. Or should I say hello again? Awesome, thank you very much. This is for variance request 2501 for a property located at 10302 Saw Timber Court. The applicants are Sean and Anna Townsend. They are also the property owners, and they are requesting a variance from Article 3.2.3D3 to allow them to have their home encroach 2 feet into the front yard setback. Article 3.2.3D3 determines setbacks for properties in the GR district, which is what their home is zoned as, if a subdivision or preliminary plan does not dictate them. Their home is located in the Hampton Ridge subdivision. Therefore, the setbacks that were determined by the subdivision plan back in the late 90s are what they have to follow. So as you can see here in the screenshot of their subdivision plat, they have a front yard setback of 30 feet, a side yard setback of 15 feet, and a rear yard setback of 35 feet. So the subject property is zoned general residential, as you can see from the context map here on your screen. The home was built in 1998. It is located on a corner lot, which is also located on a cul-de-sac, and the applicants purchased the property on March 26th of this year. So at the time of the purchase of the home, the applicants did their due diligence and they had a survey done which showed that their property had a 2-foot encroachment into the front yard setback. As you can see from the red arrow right there pointing, it says 28 feet right there. Mecklenburg County, at the time of the permit in the late 90s, at the time of that, the zoning inspections were done by Mecklenburg County on behalf of the town, so it was not the town that was doing the inspections and the permitting at the time. This variance is being requested to bring the property into compliance with the zoning ordinance. So there are 4 findings of fact that have to be met. All 4 of them have to be met to approve a variance, so we're going to go through them one at a time. The first is an unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. Staff finds that the strict application of the ordinance would require the garage to be partially removed, foundation and all, and staff considers that to be an unnecessary hardship for something that's been constructed for almost 30 years. The front setback is measured if you take it from the front property line between the 2 side lot lines, which is how it is defined in the Huntersville zoning ordinance. So it's a little confusing. As you can see on the left over there, that's the subdivision plat from the original Hampton Ridge subdivision plat. The right-of-way curves when the lot itself does not actually curve. So their front setback bumps out. And so when it was being permitted, it must have just been missed because it was a weird curve in the right-of-way. And so according to Polaris, if you look from the garage to the front yard line is almost 40 feet. So they have met the 30-foot front yard setback. It's just the original subdivision plat had a funky curve, if I can keep doing this motion that many more times. And staff does find that this requirement has been met. The second is that the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Again, we want to emphasize that the required front setback is met if you measure it from the front yard line to the garage. The zoning ordinance defines setbacks as a minimum distance required by this ordinance or established by a recorded plat between the street right-of-way, blah, blah, blah. The curvature of the front setback made it more difficult to measure accuracy during construction. So staff believes that the peculiarity here, if you will, is the fact that the right-of-way curves in a way that is not consistent with the actual property itself. So staff does find that this requirement has been met. The third is that the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The placement of the home happened in 1998, long before the current property owners purchased it. So staff does find that this requirement has been met. And finally, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. Again, the intent of the ordinance is for there to be a 30-foot front setback. If measured from the front property line, the true front property line to the garage, that is met as they have about 39 feet of clearance. Staff is not aware of any safety issues or complaints that have come from neighboring properties regarding this encroachment, so we believe that it is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, and that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. So staff does find that this requirement has also been met. So staff does recommend approval of this variance because we believe that all four have been met. And just as you're considering everything, I just wanted to have that up there for you, the four to look at again. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have for me.
Thank you. Questions for staff at the moment? Scott?
I got an obvious one. How did this come to light?
So the property owners were doing their due diligence. They were being good home buyers and had a survey done on their property, which then showed, whoops, there was a clerical error from way back in the day. And so they are just coming forward to make right something from when the home was originally permitted.
So really, the survey caught it and called it out that it was a violation.
Yep.
Any more questions for staff? We can call the applicant. Okay, if the applicant would like to speak, you are welcome to. If you could please state your name and address again, and state that,
I want to say is, we did the survey while buying the home.
I'm sorry, could you restate your name and address?
Anna Townsend.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't hear very well, so, yeah, I'm
Sorry.
very deaf. Yeah.
Okay, continue.
So, but anyway. Address 10302 South Timber Court, Huntersville.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I wanted to say is we purchased the home in March and we decided to do the survey, even though actually we didn't have to. I don't remember the reason why we were excused from the survey, but I told my husband, let's just go ahead and do it. And this is how this encroachment was discovered. And it was a headache, I can tell you. You know, we were close to closing on the home to find out that, I mean, all that language is foreign to me. I've never heard, I'm not even, you know, from US, I'm from Bulgaria originally. So we had to go through a lot to figure out what it really is. Is this really a big problem? How can we fix it? So we decided to proceed with the purchase of the house, but since we already done the work, I told my husband, let's try to close the topic. And no need my children someday to have to deal with it, or me and my husband to have to go through the same 5, 10, 15 years down the road if we want to sell the home. And it may be an issue that it's across all homes that are built in this community, but I know it's going to come out in the future. So that's my request, is to get that variance so we don't, you know, we have a closure on this topic. We don't have to deal with it again.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to call anybody else? Do you need anybody else to speak? Another witness? Are you
We
good?
don't bring any witnesses.
You're fine.
I don't know, but I think we have a lot of witnesses in the room here.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Bear with me. Okay. Parties withstanding have an opportunity to offer any rebuttal or closing arguments. As a reminder, please focus your response on legal arguments, new or clarifying evidence. Please avoid any mere repetition of the evidence we've already heard, and I'm assuming there's none of that. We'll begin with the applicant. I will call any other parties withstanding. Would the applicant like to make a rebuttal? I'm assuming you all are okay, so keep moving. In closing arguments, each party may now take a closing argument if they so choose. The applicant may choose to go first or last. Do y'all have any additional things you need to say in closing? Or the town? Okay. Now for the board. Does any party or board member believe a continuance is warranted? Is there a motion to continue on? This is where we will actually need a motion to, and a second, to continue on and move into the deliberation. knew I would mess it up. Okay, does the board have any further questions before we deliberate? Okay. Hearing none. We will now begin deliberation. The evidentiary hearing remains open for clarifying questions. So we can deliberate to determine if all 4 conditions have been met. Concur with,
I strongly believe they have been met.
I would
That's
think
my-
so too, yes. It's-
thank you, Scott. Okay, well, check. And is there a motion regarding this request?
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of application V25.01, a request by Sean and Anna Townsend for variance for Article 3.2.3D, the zoning ordinance, the planning board recommends approval of the variance requested based on the findings that the request meets all of the 4 criteria outlined in the zoning ordinance for granting this variance.
I just want to make sure that you are also including in your motion that you are adopting staff's recommended findings of fact.
And amended by adopting all of the findings and facts by the planning department.
Thank you.
And we're also not recommending approval. I think we are approving.
That's true. Amended again by saying that we are approving and not recommending to approve.
Thank you. You have a second? Okay. It's time to vote. We've had our discussion, so all the. My checklist doesn't say. Yeah, it does. Any discussion? I missed a checklist.
Welcome to Huntersville.
Yeah.
Sorry this is your first experience.
Okay. All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. All right. No other business, so if we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Those opposed? We're adjourned.
Well done, Jay.